Take a pit stop for all things NASCAR with the Four Tire Change podcast. Here is your host, Dawson Iserloh.
Welcome back into the Four Tire Change, ESPN Southwest Louisiana. Dawson Iserloh here with you. The NASCAR Cup Series, what a race, what a show put on down the streets of downtown Chicago. The Chicago Street Course, look, I'll be honest, when this first came out, 2 years ago, that they were going to do the Chicago Street Race, I thought to myself, this is going to be a disaster. You know, the next-gen car had some doubts with the road course package in the first place. I think there was always, my hesitancy to think that they could pull off a course and a track that was going to be conducive to good racing in a downtown area. I mean, it just didn't sound like it made sense to me. I wasn't the only one with concerns. A lot of people thought, there's just no way passing is even going to be possible. It was, in my opinion, kind of compared to Monaco in F1 a little bit, a track that is really awesome and has tremendous history, but yet the racing is never really good there, and people were frustrated by it and things of that nature. And last year, with all the rain and everything that was, all that hindered it, it still was pretty decent racing, and I think we thought, man, there's some real potential here. They decided to go back, of course, which I thought was a good call after what happened a year ago, and Shane Van Gisbergen, by the way, was kind of the star of the show, came in, first ever Cup Series race, won the thing, and some NASCAR drivers or some people thought, man, that's not a good look for the NASCAR drivers that somebody could come into their sport and just win this race right away. But it was a street course. It was what he is, known for with the supercars over in Australia that he came from. So all that being said, was excited to hopefully get some better weather this time around, because that was the other factor a year ago. Rain kind of made it, and we wondered how much did that change or maybe make better, maybe make worse what the racing looked like. So we thought, let's get a dry, second chance at this thing. And, of course, we didn't get a dry second chance at this thing. It rained once again. No real threat of rain until the afternoon, really, when this race was about to get going. And then, of course, everything gets derailed. But the racing was still really, really good. And the Xfinity Series race on Saturday gave us a taste of that. Shane Van Gisbergen battling it out with, Kyle Larson, some of the Cup Series guys who had went down. And, just the battle in the first 4 or 5 laps between he and Larson was unbelievable. So, that was really entertaining, and it got me really, really excited for this Cup Series race. And SVG, obviously, running full-time Xfinity for the playoffs this year, but running a part-time Cup schedule. He was in this race once again. You knew he was going to kind of be the favorite. He qualifies P5, so not, right on the pole, but really right up there in the mix. And, it was really interesting from the very beginning. And, again, this thing got going a little late. And then we find out, of course, that this race is going to have to end by 8:20 local time because, well, it's the streets of downtown Chicago, and people have work in the morning, and they got to get this course torn down. There's no lights. There's lights downtown, but not like on the street course lighting up the places that need to be lit up. So that became the subplot. But what we end up having, which I loved, was this strategy element of who's going to go to the slicks and who's going to go to the rain tires and what's going to be the right move. And, you see Michael McDowell pit early and go, I want the rain tires now. And that doesn't end up being the right move. The slicks are way faster, and, it's not working out for him. Then we have the rain delay. And after the rain delay, again, everything gets shuffled up with the strategy elements of where this thing's going to go. SVG, after a long delay, we finally get going again, which, whether they could start early or not, I understand there was a concert. This was a whole music festival thing in Chicago. This was not just about the race. This was turned into a big-time event. And so the concerts were early. The races were later. I don't have a huge problem with them not moving the time of this thing. I think it's just unfortunate. Again, you were not supposed to have rain in the forecast, and you just got unlucky in that regard. So all that being said, we get this thing going after the delay, but we know we're not going to be able to finish it. So you now have another really big mix of strategy where cars start out on the rain tires because obviously it had been raining and it was very wet. And then all of a sudden, as you're going through it, the clock is ticking down. NASCAR decides we're going to do a timer to count down this thing. And at, 8:20, essentially, it's going to be 2 laps to go whenever the leader hits that line after the clock runs out. So now you have this other kind of weird element where teams are kind of racing against the clock as opposed to against the number of laps. And then everyone starts coming down to get slick tires because the track's drying off a little bit. And Christopher Bell, who's leading this thing, looks like he's going to cruise. SVG, by the way, that's what I was about to say earlier, ends up getting caught up in an accident. Unfortunate that he gets taken out of this thing because, honestly, it's just fun to watch him do his thing around these types of tracks. So Bell's rolling, and everybody comes to get slicks, and Bell goes, I got to get slicks as well. I can't get beat on these other tires. Then we have another caution, which really switches it up, and you have some cars in the middle of the pack that go, why are we going to come down and take slicks? We're not going to win this race that way. So Joey Hand, running with RFK Racing, Alex Bowman, and a handful of others decide, let's stay out. And I thought early it was the right decision because they were still faster on those rain tires at first. So after that, you get another caution to bunch them up, and it's still looking like that's going to be the call to win the race here. The rain tires are staying out in front, but all of a sudden, here comes Christopher Bell, and here comes Tyler Reddick. And this element here in the last, handful of laps, again, racing against the clock, not just against a number of laps, was so intriguing. And Bell, I think Bell was going to get there. I really do. I think he was going to get to the lead. I think he was going to have a chance to make the pass. He unfortunately gets caught up trying to be maybe a little bit too aggressive, or maybe just a victim of circumstance, honestly. And Bell kind of gets taken out of it. But then all of a sudden, here comes Reddick. Reddick is still rolling through, and it really does look like he's got a chance to get there. He gets all the way up to second. We get that 2 laps to go, announcement after the clock runs out. And he's got a chance, but he mistimes one of those turns, kind of hits the inside barrier wall, and that loses him enough time to where Alex Bowman can stay out in front, who had made the pass on Joey Hand. And Alex Bowman gets his first win of the season. What a surprise victory for Bowman. Has never won on a road course. He's had good speed at road courses in the past, but hasn't ever really been one of the favorites, one of the guys you'd think could have a chance to pull it off. And he gets it done. And this is massive for him. It's been over 80 races since he won a race. He's had some health issues there, some injuries that have played a role. And for him to get it done here, that was massive. Now he's in the playoffs. He was in a pretty good spot bubble-wise, but you never know. Again, you get a couple new winners here down the stretch, and we still got Daytona coming up and some other road course options for a car to get there. That all really changes, the comfort level that you have. And now Bowman does not have to worry about that. Had a little bit of a run-in with Bubba Wallace there. Bubba, was kind of on the wrong end of a mistake by Bowman earlier in the race. He went ahead and said as much. He said it was on him. Bubba doors him after the checker flag on the cooldown lap. The window nets were down. I know a lot of people were talking about that element of it. He shouldn't have done it, obviously. He's probably got to keep control of his composure a little bit there. But at the same time, I hope it's not a points penalty. And Bowman said he had every right to be mad at me. So I thought that was cool of Alex to kind of say, look, don't go ahead and penalizing Bubba big time for this. I hope they don't do a points penalty because he's right on the bubble right now. 45 points out, so it's going to take a lot for him to get there. But he's still got a chance. If you get a couple of bad finishes from some guys above him, I understand if they fine him. I hope they don't give him a points penalty, but we'll see what NASCAR does. Obviously, sometimes they feel like they have to make a bigger statement on these things than other times, and I don't know which factors they're going to play into there, but that was a bit of a subplot after the race. But man, Bowman gets it done, and so again, with that cut line now, 45 points out for Bubba. There's some drivers now that probably thought they were really in good shape a while ago, and now you're starting to sit there and go, man, look at Ross Chastain. I know he's above the line, but if things get dicey here, now that Logano's won, now that Bowman's won, if you get a couple other new winners, if somebody like Bubba Wallace wins a race in the next couple of weeks, you could be in some trouble. So it's going to be interesting. This week they head to Pocono, in the Pocono Mountains. That should be a fun one. I like Pocono. It's a strategy race. It usually brings fuel mileage into play. Some of the same things that we saw at the road course, obviously in a much different way. The tricky triangle. I'm excited to see what happens. Winter-wise, I got to go with Denny Hamlin. I think he's been so good at Pocono for a long time. We've seen some really good battles between Hamlin, Larson. We've seen Chastain get involved in some incidents there. Pocono's been fun the last few years, so I'm hoping it's going to be more of the same. I'll take Hamlin, that number 11 team, to get it done. But all things considered, another exciting week in the Cup Series. Chicago Street Course was fantastic. Some of the scenes and views that they were able to pull off here with the downtown city in the background, I thought NBC's camera angles were really good as well. I was all for it. Cannot believe they pulled it off as well as they did. Hopefully they go back and get a clear forecast for once, man. I mean, it was unbelievable. But if they can do it, I'm all for it. I think it's cool. I don't know if it's something that's going to work in other cities. I've seen that brought up. People, maybe you could take a street course here and there. I don't know. Chicago feels like in some ways there's a really, really nice setup there. And I don't know exactly if you'd be able to replicate this in other cities. But if they were willing to try it at this point, I'd have to give them the benefit of the doubt because they pulled it off here. So that was fun, and we'll see what happens next. Go ahead and continue to like, comment, subscribe. Keep it locked in the Four Tire Change. The playoffs are getting closer, and our coverage is only going to get better. We'll be taking a week off next week after the Pocono race. We'll have a 2-race recap the following week, so that should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. And until then, stay locked in to Four Tire Change.